are there that's working great for us, and we're currently trying to expand that to 50 beds.
I'm Sheriff Tim Fuller from Franklin County. We're approximately 44,000 residents, and we're located on the Alabama line in southern Middle Tennessee. And this is my 37th year in law enforcement, and we started rural reentry in 2007. We were first rural reentry in the state of Tennessee, and I'm really excited about being on this panel and sharing with you guys what not only we are doing in Franklin County, but all these guys beside of me, what we're all doing. You know, it's, and I will get into this later on as we go, but I learned a long time ago in the positions I have held. This is my 13th year as sheriff, and I've served my entire career at the sheriff's office. And I learned a long time ago, probably 15 years into my career, I was a criminal investigator working some of the most terrible cases you could imagine. The first 7 years of my career as a criminal investigator was spent working child abuse cases. And I saw quickly that locking people up and throwing away the key wasn't working. And eventually, 95% of these folks were going to get out of jail. And I felt like it was incumbent upon us, as in the positions we're in, that we hold as sheriffs, to do something with them while you got them. And I will get into that as we go through this morning, but I will say this, you know, I grew up as a young child, and I may get into that later. I don't want to. My dad was a Baptist minister, so you'll have to excuse me if I get long-winded, okay? But I grew up and was taught at a very young age that there's good in everybody. No matter how bad a person you may be looking at, there's good there somewhere. And in our positions as sheriffs, sometimes that's hard to find, okay? But I grew up with that foundation, and I'm a firm believer in that foundation. There's good in everybody if you look hard enough. You just got to capitalize on it.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Sheriff Fuller, since you were speaking on that, I think this is a good segue for you to go into our first question. And our first question is, please discuss how work release reentry programming began at your jail and the circumstances that prompted implementation of this programming.
When we first started back in 2007, Miss Christine Hopkins, and she tells this story very, very well. I was in my first campaign speech ever, Swanee Mountain, and I spoke about reentry, and I spoke, or not necessarily specifically reentry, but rehabilitation. Christine came to me and she said, "Are you serious?" After I got done speaking, I said, "Absolutely." She said, "I'm going to retire here shortly. Tell me what you need me to do." And that's where we began. And as I said just moments ago, I felt like that let's do something with them while we got them. And leading into that, from my perspective, we had always had a work program with the sheriff's office. My entire career, we've had work release and we've had inmates out working. The 7 years prior to me being elected, I worked for a gentleman, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's factual. He lived on the WIOA pyro theory of 23 and 1, lock them up 23 hours a day, 1 day out, or 1 hour out, 23 hours a day and 1 hour out. And let's make their life just as miserable as possible in the process. We were going through a stage in our jail where we had people trying to kill themselves. We were going through a stage in our correctional situation where people were coming back again. Recidivism was huge, 90% at the time. That was not working. And when I envisioned reentry, I envisioned some small things at the beginning, obviously with the objective of getting people a job. But I envisioned getting people their GEDs, getting them prepared for the workplace, and a lot of things I didn't realize in the beginning. and that was evidence-based results. And those things came over a period of time, and don't mind at all getting into what we have offered and where we're at today, but when we first started our reentry program, you couldn't hire somebody to hire a felon in Franklin County. You just couldn't. And it was paramount that we build a relationship with our business community. And we started with the Chamber of Commerce is where we started, to build that relationship. Moving forward to today, going fast forward to today, there's only 2 companies in Franklin County, well, one's not a company. There's only 2 places in Franklin County we cannot get a felon a job. One is Nissan. The other one is the Arnold Air Force Base. Everywhere else, the sky's the limit. They're coming to us left and right. Hey, how many of you got that when they get out of jail, we can hire? And a lot of our focus in the recent history has been based on plastic injection molding through the TCAT Center with Applied Technology. College of Applied Technology has done classes with Christine as a partnership. And those people, as soon as they walk out of jail, they got a job. And it's not just about getting the inmate a job, it's about them keeping a job.
Absolutely.
And so that's sort of where we started from the very beginnings to where we're at today.
All right, thank you, Sheriff Fuller. Sheriff Box, same question to you.
Well, I'd like to say that, you know, a sheriff's job is to provide public safety of his community. You know, for one of my responsibilities, I run a local jail, correctional facility. You know, for me, the definition of corrections is correct deviant behavior for me as a sheriff. That's the way I interpret that. So I do want to state that every successful reentry creates, like Commissioner Parker said earlier, one less victim, one more productive citizen in our community. So that's why it matters to me. That's why reentry matters to me, and it increases our public safety of our community. But in Dyer County has had several barriers over many years, and part of that is the lack of evidence-based and treatment facilities in rural West Tennessee, particularly Dyer County. So because of that, the Dyer County Jail over the period of years has had to be known to having strong jail programs inside their jail, strong jail ministries, lots of drug and alcohol programs, any mental health counseling that we could get inside that jail, because we don't have those treatment centers right there in our county. So we have that long history, and based on some of our prior programming and programs that we had, in 2013, I created what I called a Sheriff's Jail Reentry Program. We took a small group, modeled off of some of our other programs that we had in the jail. We had some small groups, one group that we called the Positive Pod, where we worked with that small group of men. So now we had a Sheriff's Reentry Program working with that small group of men. As we kept teaching these men about workforce development, jobs, employment, how we was teaching them about the important things and trying to give them the tools they would need to be successful. And at that time, we started remodeling our old Dyer County jail that had been shut down several years ago, and we were able to get it up to pass inspection by the Tennessee Corrections Institute, and in 2015, it was certified as a 30-bed TCI jail. It was remodeled and opened at that time. Also, I've got more recognized Margaret Prater. She's Executive Director of Northwest Tennessee Workforce. Margaret has always been a partner with me since 2015 on reentry. She's had great impact to the success of our program there, and she is one of those strong partners in our county and one of those stakeholders that I sincerely appreciate her for that. That's how we got started, basically. And
Okay, thank you. Sheriff Shrum, who are the stakeholders in your county, and what is the expected outcome for them for the reentry programs?
Yeah, so I think with stakeholders, certainly the correction staff and the inmate alone is a stakeholder in what we do with our program. Then some of our local businesses are stakeholders, and the faith-based community as well. They want to see results. And pretty much the expected outcome is this, is let's give these inmates who are participating in our programs a skill or some knowledge or something that they can take with them when they are released from the facility, implement it into the work field, and keep gainful employment. And so with all those people coming to the table, and just most recently with the East Tennessee State University and Tennessee Institute of Public Health coming on board, we've been able to get some pretty good results from that.
Fantastic, thank you. Sheriff Rowland, one of the obstacles to a successful reentry program and the support for these programs is opposition from the public. People generally tend to think that if inmates are getting something that law-abiding citizens aren't getting, they tend to have, have some issues with that. So can you tell us how the success of your programs has helped to refute those perceptions?
There's a lot of challenges from the public and even your staff as far as providing resources for people that are entrusted to you, our inmates. But we've definitely seen some of those walls and barriers break down. Long term, I mean, we try to not only our short term inmates, but long term as well. We try to provide these programs and all for folks that are going to be incarcerated for a long period of time, because those folks will continue to have an influence as well long-term on other inmates that are going to be coming back and re-entered into society much quicker. So they're going to have a great impact and a great influence. So we want to provide all these resources and programs for everyone that's entrusted to us. But as you do these programs and you have success, you see people, they buy in and they see value in what you're doing. And we've had, of course, our faith-based, that's a core group that have entrusted a lot of resources, time, and energy into these folks. And they go out and share your message and what you're doing and some of those successes. And you just kind of slow walk society down as well and get them. You win them over, and when you have those folks in your corner, I mean, you have a lot of success with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, thank you. Sheriff Box, some of the most important goals of any reentry program are reducing recidivism, increasing post-release employment opportunities, and avoiding unnecessary costs to taxpayers. What impact has your program had on employment and recidivism for the participants of your program?
Eric, I want to start with where I left off just a minute ago. Northwest Tennessee Workforce actually come on board, and we received a grant from them in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And with that grant, we created a American Job Center, a career center inside our Dare County Work Center. We had a job developer and a career advisor that worked. Her staff trained my staff, which were 10 correction officers in that facility. That facility had a $377,000 budget to cover the staff of employees. My program was a little different than some others, that the offenders that I have work while they're incarcerated. We take those offenders after we screen those offenders and see that they're qualified by TCA to work. And then we put a GPS bracelet on them. We do orientation classes. We're currently doing the RAMP program, the CPT program, which is funded also by a grant through Workforce. And right now our program is supported by Dyersburg State also, the community college, and the Gibson County program is supported by the Vocational College of Applied Technology. So, but our program has, after 3 years looking back at it, we have, it's beginning to profit, it's beginning to pay for itself. It's netting somewhere around $84,000 a year. with anywhere from 30 to 38 inmate workers in that building. Most of the time, the building is empty because they're all out working. The employers in our community, they want more inmates. That's why we're expanding. We've got, like I said, I think 38 right now working, and, we could put another 20 together to work very easily. There was a question earlier about possibly reentering inmate jobs taken away from the community, jobs that are available to the community. Most employers can't find employees, is what they're telling me, and they're having problems with those people meeting what the things that they need met. Our inmates are great workers. We have 9 employers, different types of industries. We have one pet supply, we have automotive supplier, we have a tire retailer, 2 different plastic factories, a pallet company, landscaping company. We have metal building erectors. Some contractors come in, plumbing services. Our requirement is for them to have workman's comp in place to cover those in case they're injured. But it's working great. The inmate pays a program fee every day they work. They're not charged when they don't work. It's actually, like I said, it's paying for itself now. Our recidivism in Dyer County normally trends from 60 to 65% in the main jail. The work center model that we've looked at over 3 years is down to about from 11 to 13% on those offenders. Now, we have a lot of programming in the main jail, a lot of programs there, drug and alcohol programs. Those regular jail program inmates, most of them are running around a 40% recidivism. It's a little bit less, but the regular inmates in the main jail are 40%. But what we've done to our reentry inmates, we have another facility. We took that inmate out of our main facility. We changed them to a different building. We changed their clothes they had on. We told them that we moved them from the environment in the main jail. Now we've changed your environment. You're different, and you're on the road to change, and that's what we've told them. That's what we're doing. Eric seems to be working great for us.
Absolutely, thank you. So basically, you have a work release program where they go out to work every day. They make the same wage as individuals in the community, and they're able to contribute towards the cost of their incarceration and also save money to pay fees and fines and things of that nature.
Yes, sir. They wear a GPS ankle bracelet. We transport them to and from work. They have, it's really amazing. I do want to give you those numbers you just asked about. They're paying child support. They're paying all their court fines off. We had one inmate that had money in his inmate account paid for a funeral up in Middle Tennessee of a family member that couldn't. One of our work center inmates that worked at a pet supplier company, they've got about 7 working there. It's sort of funny. He got voted Employee of the Month and got a $500 bonus. So he was proud of that and ended up with his picture in the paper. So, but yeah, that.
Good workers.
Yes, sir. Like I said earlier, that budget is $377,000. Our target group there are TDOC inmates. Some work centers and different programs, you've seen misdemeanors in this, we wanted to target TDOC inmates because there's a large number of TDOC inmates returning to TDOC and returning to the Dyer County Jail. And we wanted to see if we could help with that. A large number of those people were returning on technical violations. And a lot of that's because they hadn't paid. They wouldn't report to their probation officer because they owed them money and they didn't show up, or maybe they didn't have a job and they couldn't pass the drug screen. So that's why we wanted to target the TDOC group, and that's what we have in that building. And from July 2017 to April 2018, total amount of fines paid by those inmates in the work center, it was 30-bed facility. They had paid fines, court costs, and fees and restitution of $74,787, and that was from July 17 to April of 18. The total satisfied amount to Dyer County or the municipalities within Dyer County was $61,998. from 2015 to 2018, the inmates completing the program were able to save $151,000. That's how much money went home with them after they paid their fines off, got their driver's license. And from July the 15th to, from 2015 to 2018, that same group paid $18,000 worth of child support while they're incarcerated in the Dyer County Work Center. Average funds that each inmate over that 3-year period saved actually was approximately $2,500 that they went home with. So
That's absolutely fantastic. That's fantastic. That deserves a round of applause right there. Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Sheriff. This is a general question to the group. Offenders released from incarceration face many challenges, and not all the challenges can be addressed by government. How do you utilize community nonprofit agencies and religious organizations? And if so, and if you do utilize them, please explain their role and how this collaboration supports your program.
I'll start that one. They play a huge role. That is probably the biggest challenge that we have after we've had these folks entrusted to us for a period of time, is the transitional housing and to continue the process that they started while they were incarcerated. But we rely on our nonprofits and faith-based community to help continue to walk. You want to have a sense of accountability, to build these relationships while these folks are clean, because probably 90+% are going to have some type of substance abuse once they come in. And they truly, when they come in, they want to have a better and brighter future. But life's still life on the outside of those walls. And so it's so important to have those partners on the outside. With our programs at Murray County, everything that we start in-house, they can go and pick up with those programs and continue that walk as they're free. But having those partners are key in that. But transitional housing, and I'd love to speak with anyone that has any suggestions with that, because that is the weakest link in the chain, as I know it in Murray County. So we absolutely depend on our faith-based and nonprofits.
Thank you, Sheriff. Anyone else?
I'll go on the second one. I can't say enough good things about that relationship. Just like Sheriff Rowland spoke about, the weak link, and I hate to talk about the weak first, but the weak link in our rural areas are transitional housing and transportation. Because so many of our folks do not have a license, do not have a valid license. And that is a huge weak link in the rural area. And that's where these nonprofit organizations and church groups can help us out in those areas, and they have to a degree. Even just, I use this for a small example. Christine's Sunday school class passes a hat so that we can dress our folks for those job interviews. We can get those birth certificates purchased, those driver's license or identifications purchased, because we don't have a fund for that inside of our mechanism. That's one small area. And we've got a number of people that that serves on our board of directors that step up to the plate to help individually as well as and I think moving forward, the mentorship is paramount moving forward, because as I said earlier, it's not about just getting them prepared and getting them a job. It's about them keeping that job moving forward.
Absolutely, thank you. And you brought up some absolutely fantastic points, Sheriff, as far as it relates to identification and the mentoring piece.
Right.
Because for anyone that don't understand how difficult it is to transition from incarceration to the community, it's a very difficult task. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. All right, we'll go on to the next question here. And this is a general question for all. Not all offenders share the same risk levels or needs. How does your reentry program address the underlying attitudes they have about crime and/or their work ethics that may be specific to the individual? So we don't, not talking about like a one-size-fits-all approach here, but I know sometimes we have to have individual programming. So how do you all address that?
Yeah, so I'll take on that first. When our offender comes in and we realize how long they're going to be there after they've been sentenced, we do a risk needs assessment or a needs assessment that kind of directs us in the path that they need to take. And it's kind of just ironic. I was sitting here, actually, Miss Christine Hopkins, who is here, is the one who turned us on to reentry. And so she's kind of responsible for Franklin counties and then Grundy County a little bit as well. And that has been a little bit of a task for us. I hear Sheriff Box and these other sheriffs talking about what kind of budget they have. I have a $0 budget within my county for reentry. Now, we have a grant from the Office of Criminal Justice Programs, but I have no dollars. So everything that we have done, we've had to depend on volunteers and the old, begging for everything that we have. So we start with $0. Volunteers, as you mentioned a little bit, have been huge to us, and nonprofits. We've been able to get a few grants along the way. So it has been a little bit difficult for us to transition into getting needs assessments. We just moved into a new facility about 2 years ago. The facility that we moved out of had 99 inmates in a 34-bed facility. When I took office, we had people sleeping in the kitchen. So we've had to make that transition and learn what kind of needs assessment has to be done. So we've been able to do that through some partnerships with the University of the South and particularly the Vista Core program. And it's brought huge dividends in the way that we direct our inmates in the paths that they should take, for sure.
That is fantastic, and I had the opportunity to visit your new jail,
Yeah.
and it's a very nice facility, and I commend you for the grants that you sought out to bring programming to the
Sure,
jail.
absolutely, thank you.
All right, Sheriff?
We've just recently received a $250,000 grant through TDOC, and it's actually probably our biggest partner, or they have more skin in the game, is the South Central Workforce Alliance, and it's a pilot program that we have, and it's going to be dealing with, we're partnering with Rise Up Tennessee. It's a local faith-based group, and we plan to isolate a pod for 12 to 15 ladies that are more likely to offend, so they have a little bit more severe past and all, and we're going to participate with these folks each week as far as bringing in specialists to come in and help them with mental health issues and parenting issues, different things. So we look forward to seeing what that outcome will be, and it's going to be someone that they're not going to be eligible for work release programs. They're going to be actually isolated to the jail, and it is a pilot program for us. I mean, because our other avenues that we're trying to get folks outside, so we're going to take that data that we get with this and kind of compare. And then also with that grant, we're going to kind of key on it's a part of society that no one wants to speak of, and as far as the jail goes, it's kind of the lower rung. There's even a pecking order within a jail, but the sex offenders, we're going to really focus on dealing with sex offenders, trying to provide them programs and all as well, because they seem to be left out on a lot of different programs and all, because you don't want to take that risk or what have you as far as getting these folks out. They're probably the most difficult to find employment for or to find placement. So we're going to see what this grant and the outcome is with that. So.
That is correct. Statewide, it is very difficult to place them, and they're the ones that need the most help. So you're absolutely correct. All right, Sheriff Fox.
Yes, and I just want to say, in 2013, when we started our Sheriff's Jail Reentry Program, we had zero budget also. We did that program for 2 years where I would find correctional officers and volunteers from some of our faith-based groups and different groups that would come in and teach our reentry program within the jail. That year in 2015, whenever I got funding for that budget, or 2014, I had a public hearing. I had people from the community and the public stand up and didn't want to spend money on the jail and inmates and this type of program. So, I had to tell the public there, I had a lot of supporters there, but I had 2 or 3 that was really against it. And I had to tell them, for me, running a jail without correction is like running a school without education. That's what I told them. If I'm gonna run a jail without correction, might as well go out on what we call Lake Road and run a hotel or motel. Just let them in, let them out. So that's not me. I'm not good at spinning my wheels. Something's not working, I'm gonna change what I'm doing. And it seems like that correctional system for the past 50 years, I don't like the result that I've seen, since I started in 1986 myself when I was 18 years old. So I don't like the result of our correctional system, and that's why I do like the results of reentry. I think reentry has the greatest impact, getting someone a job, putting them on their feet where they can support themselves, their family, pay their fines off, be a productive member, have something to be proud of. I think that has the greatest impact on reducing recidivism.
Thank you, Sheriff.
The assessment process to me, is paramount. And we were very fortunate. In the very beginning, our first funding came from Office of Criminal Justice Programs. As I recall, it was $95,000 for that first year or a couple years. And moving forward, this last budget cycle, the county commission approved, I call it sustainability dollars. And part of those sustainability dollars was the positions, and one of those positions is a licensed clinical social worker to deal with those issues that each one of these inmates have. One of the hardest hurdles there is to overcome, and it's not only in reentry, but it's in drug court, is that criminal thinking, getting above that criminal thinking. And we face with this all the time, and I use this as an example in our drug court, and it's the same way with reentry. We have been overcrowded. We're building onto a facility, and I don't have a good classification right now at all. So I'm having to house program people, be it reentry or drug court, with the folks that are looking at going to prison for 20-plus years for something pretty bad. And that mindset back there in those pods, it works something like this. You're in program, you're in drug court, and the rest of these guys back here, you're gonna fail. They're setting you up to fail. They're getting in these guys' heads because they want these guys that's got the opportunity to be in reentry or in drug court, they want them to pull them back in the same ditch they're in, because they're fixing to go to prison for a while. And I can't express that enough. You continue to tell somebody they're a failure, they begin to believe it after a while. And that criminal thinking, you've got to make a difference. And, and I think each sheriff will agree with me, a lot of the inmates that we deal with have been told they're a failure their entire life. They're convinced of that. A lot of it's generational. We're dealing with 3rd and 4th generations that have been told that they are a failure. They can't succeed. And that is, I think, one of the biggest hurdles to overcome. And from my background with working child cases, this is another monster in the closet. A lot of the victims I have seen in child cases, child sex cases, have unfortunately turned to addiction, turned to criminal behavior as an adult because of what happened to them as a young child, being sexually molested. So there is a huge need in our facilities, and we're blessed to have that licensed clinical social worker to be able to help with not only the assessment, but if not treatment, directions to treatment moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Eric, if I could say one more thing about that real quickly, dealing with assessments. We partnered with the Vista Core Group And we actually conducted our own research inside of our jail as to what it would take for people to stay out of jail. Our recidivism rate is about 54% on a bad day. We have been down to 34%. Our program recidivism is at about 7%. So we've had some success with what we're doing. But we credit that a lot based on the own research that we did inside of our jail to assess some things. So we interviewed 47 inmates, and we asked them 4 questions to find out what it would take for them not to return to jail. The number one question, or the number one answer to those questions, was gainful employment. There was no other assessment that we could do that fit the need better than what we done right there to figure out what we needed to do. So we had to go out and develop those partnerships. I think the other was a meaningful relationship. The third one was, I believe, faith-based questions. But I think it's necessary for sheriffs to know what's going on, what we call in the back, but then do your own research, do your own assessment, not necessarily depend on a computer generated model to kind of figure out what's going on. For me, I've got 86 inmates this morning. I don't have an overcrowding issue, and so it's a little easier for me to conduct some of those things. But I believe that assessment alone benefited us more than any kind of other assessment that we could have done.
I'd love to send you a few.
No.
And one other thing, we're talking about some percentages with recidivism and all. These numbers are extremely low compared to the national or the state average. The 4 men sitting before you, I mean, we're probably we are the leaders in the state of Tennessee of the 95 sheriffs and county jails throughout Tennessee. And we've had great success with these numbers. So don't think that wherever you're from that they're going to have these same numbers, because they don't have these programs. Many of them do not. And so it's a new thing. This is Sheriff Fuller and Sheriff Box. They were sheriffs prior to Sheriff Shrum and myself, but they've had some success. And we've came in our second terms now, and we've had great success. So these programs and investing this into these folks, these type of resources are definitely paying off. And so that's giving back to the taxpayers and the citizens in your community. So I'd highly recommend that you reach out to your sheriffs and let them know what we're doing as well. It's catching on throughout the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's working out, I know Tim and Jeff have preached their messages, so I want to preach mine real quick. And I think one of the things is that networking, I have to give them a hard time. They're the old heads. Those are old guys over there. So I'll tell you how old they are in just a second. But it's networking amongst ourselves. This is not the first time that we've presented together. I know Jeff and I presented over at Chattanooga together. It's not the first time that we've met. Sheriff Rowland and his reentry crew came over to our jail to see what was working for them. We're going over to their jail to see what's working for them, to see if we can use any of that stuff. Sheriff Fuller is just next door to me, and I can't tell you how many times that I have gone to his office and sat down and said, hey, what's working? In fact, I went to his office and sat down before I ever run for sheriff and took my wife down there and said, do I really want to do this? So that's, yeah. So they've been in the business a long time, and I think it's, like Bucky said, it's paramount for other sheriffs to see what they're doing, go to them and go, what's working for you, and assess based on what's working for them. Can that work for me? I think sometimes we get stuck in a model of well, let's set them down in front of a computer, let them ask a few questions and score it, and then push them in that direction. I don't think that always works. Some of the things that they're doing, I've implemented or tried to implement, especially what Sheriff Box is doing. And I think we can get greater results that way, because what works for one facility may or may not work for the other facility, and we just have to assess what's going on.
Absolutely fantastic point. Yes, sir.
And I think you'll see sheriffs touring each other's jails.
Yeah,
and I'll probably come see y'all's also, because we're always, the sheriffs, and we're all active in the Sheriff's Association. We meet every 2 months, and we're all, matter of fact, actually tomorrow, we're going to be in a meeting tomorrow in Lebanon. So, and we're working on those problems that we face, and not only just, in the jail, we deal with a bad mental health problem also that we're dealing with throughout the jails. But we also, I just want to say quickly that we do those assessments. We look at we've done the assessments with our inmates as they come in when they apply for a job in the work center. They have an application process, an assessment. They have to go before our Board of Workforce Commissioners to be approved to come over there or disapproved if they meet TCA code. And also, I just wanted to say, the American Job Center, through the WIOA Act, they can pay wages for employers that hire these inmates. If they want to get them in the door, it may not cost that employer anything to test that inmate and see if he's a good worker. So remember, reach out to your local office on that and your director. I want to say this too, that reentry is not a part-time job.
Absolutely.
It's sort of like when somebody says rehab or something like that. That's a process. It's not a point in time. You don't flip a switch to change someone. So that's why reentry is a full-time job. You have to have somebody watching, seeing after those people, following up, and monitoring those people while they're in your care. So do want to say that, and I guess that's about it. Other than stakeholders, agree with that. Stakeholders, networking is great. And, it's an honor and privilege to be here today. Just want y'all to know that.
Thank you all. Thank you. I appreciate it because it's no need to reinvent the wheel, and so it's good that everybody's visiting because what works, works.
I can't express enough the networking aspect because we have traveled, Sullivan County, New Hampshire was one of the #1 counties in the nation for reentry. We made a trip, we made 2 trips there to see what they're doing. It's just like the networking with our sheriffs in this state with what's working and what's not. And we obviously learn from each other, but that networking is paramount to go see what other folks are doing. And, and I learned quite some time ago, I've known this for a long time, when you get outside of your comfort zone and your bubble, A, you learn something, and B, you're grateful for what you have at home. You really are, And I learned that over a course of time, and I think one of you brought this up earlier, and I want to expound on this a little bit, and it's a challenge, opposition. When I first started our reentry program, the biggest opposition I had was my own employees. Referring to our program as Hug-a-Thug. I got 1 or 2 today.
Yeah.
And this even comes home to my breakfast table. My family gets together on Sunday morning and has breakfast. My wife, my 2 kids, and their spouses. This even comes home to my breakfast table. I have a son that's a detective for the city of Winchester. I have a daughter that is a deputy circuit court clerk. My son is older than my daughter. He does not believe in reentry at all. My daughter, on the other hand, does.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets pretty heated on Sunday morning.
I can imagine.
And I'm sitting here, 56 years old, been around a minute or 2. And it gets interesting. It feels like I've got to get out the penalty flags every so often, because of that opinionation. And I've told him time and time again, son, you will learn as time goes on. Locking them up and throwing away the key isn't
It does not work.
the avenue, and it does not work.
Right.
I said, you will realize that. And it's going to take a little while for
Right.
him. He's got his mama's attitude, he's hard-headed. But the point I'm making, and one other issue I had, I'll never forget this as long as I live, and I'm sitting in disbelief. And if I get on somebody's toes today, I'm sorry, I apologize, but we have University of South in Franklin County. They're a great college. It's one of the best in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
They look at things different up there, okay? Let's just put it that way. but I had a contingency from the University of South when I started reentry. Well, Sheriff, you're gonna take jobs away from people that really needs a job. I'm like, what? I got people in jail that really needs a job. They were concerned about us taking away, by putting inmates to work in meaningful jobs, taking away. I don't know if Sheriff Shrum and I were neighbors, and I don't know if he shared that issue when he first started or not, but I did. Those were the two oppositions. The county commission looked at us a little bit suspect when we started, like, we'll see if this works. And today, they're the best cheerleaders we have. I can't say enough positive things in that direction. And I'm gonna say this, and we'll move on, as again, y'all calm me down. We might have some chicken here in a little while, you know, the Baptist preacher syndrome. But I'm gonna say this. Governor Lee spoke this morning. I served on him under Governor Haslam on a task force for recidivism and sentencing. I didn't know Bill Lee from Adam's house yet. I didn't. Let me tell you folks, his heart's in the right place. What he talked to you guys about this morning, he lives it, he breathes it. He has a conviction for where we're going here with this, with reentry, rehabilitation. He has been involved. I can't begin to tell you where he's been involved, but Man of Valor is one. That's how I met that man. His heart's in the right place. So,
Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and ask, I'm going to go ahead and ask the last question here, and then we'll open it up for questions. Okay, so what advice would you offer to other sheriffs who would like to start a work release or reentry program in their jail?
Talk to Tim Fuller and Jeff Box. Now, I will say this, those two men right there have a lot of wisdom, and I call on them, but they said two things that just echo with me. First of all, reentry is a full-time job.
yes.
And if you've got a sheriff that's not committed to it, and listen, we have a lot of sheriffs that are not committed to reentry. But if you're not committed to it, don't start it. You're setting yourself up for failure. The second thing is this: you've got to have those convictions in your heart to be able to want to succeed. So if you've got those two things, you can make reentry work for sure.
We keep throwing out the word or the label inmates, residents, whatever you want to call them. These are people, and they're coming back into your communities. They're someone's daughter or son, and kind of a model that we put together. We're going to try to meet their spiritual needs, number one. When they come in, we want to get them clean off of whatever substance abuse that they have, and meet their spiritual needs. We want to connect their heart and their head together. We want to take and work on the substance abuse issues that they may have. We want to try to provide them with an education. We've had over 90 people receive their high set or GED in the past 4 years, and out of those 90 people, only 12% have repeat offended since they've received their education. So that is, education, it's a light bulb moment for these folks that, hey, I can have a brighter future if I choose to. The job readiness. We train folks up. We had a pilot program in 15 with the Career Center where they came in and they taught folks how to fill out a resume. They didn't even know how to do that. Fill out resumes, how to be an apprentice, we have coding programs, Excel programs, Word programs to where we're giving them computer skills. We want to teach them how to be a parent, how to be a mom or a dad. Dad checked out a long time ago. Mom's checked out now. And so it has to be a multi-generation approach with what we're doing, and you're going to have success. It should never be normal for these children to know or to think that, well, I'm going to sell drugs like mom or dad, or I'm going to prison like mom. That's their normal, and that should never be normal. And we're going to teach them how to manage their finances. People don't know how to create and live within a budget. They don't know the value of money. They just spend it. They go get it any way that they can, and they waste it. So we want to teach them how to be financially responsible, and we want to help them with their mental health. So many of those folks, as Sheriff Fuller said earlier, they have mental health issues, and then some of it may be from trauma. And that is the key to helping them battle substance abuse issues, is finding out what's going on with the trauma of what happened to them early in their life, and how to fill that with something good. So that's what I would suggest to a sheriff to start a reentry program.
You know, I want to address right quick what's wrong. You know, our technical violators, you know, seems like a lot of times probation just turns into a game, it seems. I'm not trying to slide anybody by that, but so it's a lot of times it's about that payment. It's about that fine. And we see that in lower court, I'm not just saying it on the state level, whatever. See that a lot of times. So, furloughs, sheriffs are familiar with inmates being furloughed to a drug treatment center for 6 months after he served 6 months in jail or whatever. And then, he runs off. He didn't have that full-time supervision that reentry requires at times. And so, we've seen, you know, some of those furlough orders to treatment centers have been successful, but we've seen a whole lot of them come back that hadn't been successful too. So, and most of the time, they don't comply and they run off. You know, we got overcrowded jails in the state of Tennessee. That's another obstacle and barrier we have, and we're working on that too. A lot of non-sentenced inmates in the jails that we have to sit there and hold. We can't move them to another jail. You know, in January, we had 97 pretrial felons in Dyer County Jail. We only had 56 sentenced TDOC inmates in the main jail. So 97 of them were pretrial, waiting for trial. So, in contrast to the work center, and our work center, we had 35 sentenced TDOC inmates in the work center. The other things is, you know, we have way too many pretrial misdemeanors. January, I believe we had 23 non-sentenced misdemeanors. We only had 29 sentenced misdemeanors. So a lot of those people are not getting to court. I'm just mentioning that because there's some other problems in the judicial system. Keep a close eye on your judicial system. Look at the result of your local court. See what you're getting out of that court. Monitor that. Be sure your mayor is. You know, as far as creating a reentry program, you know, in 2014 and 15, I stayed nearly an hour and a half in the budget committee arguing and upholding for a reentry concept and program that I was trying to put in place. They kept asking me, Sheriff, is this going to make money? I said, well, guys, I'm not going to promise you that it's going to make money, but I'm going to tell you that the concept in the long run can pay for itself, and it has. And it's about changing lives. You know, whether you call those inmates or you call them students in their class, you know, my jail administrator has had a long career in the Department of Corrections. He calls them convicts a lot of times. So that's what they are. It don't matter what they're called. They're still someone's maybe father, brother, maybe somebody's grandson. Sheriffs get a lot of phone calls from grandparents. What can I do about my grandson? You've got him down there. How can we fix him? Well, for me, it's been reentry is how I can fix grandsons and things like that now. Get them a job, get them on their feet. So, you know, Jim Hart with C-Task, I need to mention his name. He's a great resource if you want to start a reentry program. He has, there's a pamphlet at C-Task through the Eli Library. I call it the Work Center pamphlet. It's every code you need in there. I believe it's like 1654. I may be wrong on that, but Jim knows what that is. You can research it. It's got every code that you need to look at about a work center. And so you're welcome at any time to come visit us in Dyer County. We'll always make you good and welcome. And again, thank you for my Northwest Tennessee Workforce Board, Margaret Prater, and thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. I think we're going to have to go ahead and start wrapping things up. I think we're right at our ending time here. I was hoping to get a few questions in. Can we get like one or two questions? Where are our speaker boxes? Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask the sheriffs? Okay, I guess I'm standing in the way of lunch.
confused them enough, haven't we?
Okay, well, let me say this right quick to the sheriffs. Thank you all so much for being here. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay. I've had the opportunity to travel with our jail liaison, Mr. Bob McKee, to visit the different sheriffs around the state, and I can't tell you enough about what they're doing. Every sheriff's department I've been to, from the smallest sheriff's department to the largest sheriff's department, they're talking about reentry and what they want to do to assist the individuals that are incarcerated in their jails. So they're not just up here. They are serious about what they're doing. I've been to their jails and their programs, and it's just fantastic. And once everybody understands that, once the county commissions and everybody gets to understand that and the need for that and the benefit for that, I think it'll bode well for what you all are trying to do. So
Let me say one other thing before we finish today. Any of you guys sitting out there that your sheriff does not have a reentry or have a work release program, feel free to refer them to any four of us sitting here today. There's others besides us that's in the reentry business. We do not mind traveling. We do not mind speaking to them, meeting with them, whatever the case may be. And it's scary when you think about all the responsibilities we have as sheriffs in this state. It's scary to think about if we don't take a stand and make a difference in our jurisdictions with this issue, who is? And I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say one other thing.
Preach, Tim, preach.
Look at who's to replace us. Millennials. Think about that. Think about it. We're old school, bullheaded sometimes, but the point I'm making is to make a difference in what we do. And, you know, we're in a position to influence things. We are. And there is, just like Sheriff Box was talking about a minute ago, going before a county commission and getting grilled. We're used to that, okay? We really are. But at the same time, please pass this to your sheriffs if they're not in thinking about reentry or work release. We'll be more than happy to help any way we can. Any way we can.
I've got to get out of trouble. Yes, I was drilled before the county commission, but they are great supporters now. So if you want to bring your mayor, some of your commissioners,
Absolutely.
or whatever to Dyer County, we'll load them up on a van or bus, and we'll carry them around to the industries and things we're doing and show them real live and working. We'll probably feed you lunch while you're there too. So you're welcome to come down there. Just give us a call anytime.
thank you all. Thank you, audience. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's give our sheriffs and Eric another round of applause. You know, I am so impressed that one, they would take time out of their schedules to be here and talk about reentry. But I got to tell you, I tend to lean towards straight talkers, and you got it straight, no chaser today from the sheriffs. And I want to thank you for being champions across our state. And we certainly will hope that the workforce system will continue to look for ways to partner with you to help alleviate some of the barriers. I know our state workforce board under Chairman Tim Berry has certainly given us a charge to do that. And we have a treasurer, Ms. Christine Hopkins, that sits on our board, and she's going to keep us honest that we're doing that, Ms. Christine. We're going to be there. We're going to do it in a greater way. I know everyone's probably, their stomachs are telling them it's time for lunch, but before we do, I think it's important that to really realize what you heard from the sheriffs today, we want to show you an example of why reentry really matters. So we're going to call your attention to the screens.
The slam of a prison cell door. It's a sound Jerry Jordan heard over and over for 25 years.
And yeah, I was in and out for many years. And at close to the end when I got out, that's when the drugs kicked in.
To help get clean, Jerry turned to the folks at Buffalo Valley Treatment Center. To get on the path to a new career, the 52-year-old turned to the American Job Center in Clarksville.
They got me in, got my test, they told me things that I needed, and they helped out a lot.
The Clarksville Area Reentry Program, or CARE, works with justice-involved individuals like Jerry and helps them navigate life on the outside. Jerry's plan took him to Austin Peay State University.
My concentration is accounting, but my mind is business.
Help getting into a school or a training program is just one part of Tennessee's reentry programs.
Meaning that we help them with job services, we'll help them if they need help finding housing, food, clothing, we can help them in all those areas.
CARE staff works one-on-one with each person to figure out the barriers they face, and then they find a way to overcome them, no matter what may have happened in the past.
And that's what I tell them. It's no, we don't look at your background. Your background is just that, it's the background. We're looking at what's forward. We're moving forward and we're gonna continue to help you.
Those are words Jerry Jordan had never really heard before, but now he understands what they mean.
Life has different hurdles and different speed bumps. It's how you approach the speed bump and then how you go over it. If you approach it slow and go over it, you can keep going.
And Jerry knows his path to a college education will make the next 25 years of his life much different than the last 25.
I'm proud of what I am today compared to what I was years ago.
Thank you to the Clarksville, Montgomery County team for the work that they've done. We know there are stories like this all over our state, and we want to capture those. And so our wonderful communications team headed by Chris Cannon and Scott went out to capture these stories. And we want to certainly capture some of the stories we heard today from the sheriffs that were on our panel. And again, we are indebted to them for sharing their experience and more importantly, how they're impacting communities. And we, as a workforce system, understand the importance of really looking at these folks as potential workforce suppliers or workforce supply, for business and industry that need them. So we look forward to that. So we're going to ask you at this time if you will excuse yourself for lunch. Lunch will be in room 104. But we will ask that you take a quick stretch break and head to room 104. We have an incredible speaker scheduled to start at noon, and so we will see you in room 104. Enjoy lunch.